In our final lesson in Module 7 on virtual machine management, we're going to have a look at two different topics. We're going to look at replication and we're going to look at backup. Now, both of these systems are crucial for maintaining the stability and the reliability of your environment, as well as your ability to do disaster avoidance and disaster recovery. And both of these systems are separate from one another, but we'll talk about them here together. We'll look at replication first. So we'll look at the components of a replication architecture, and we'll deploy and configure vSphere replication. Now, this is a product that is included in your vSphere license that gives you the ability to replicate virtual machines to separate data stores in the event that your storage arrays don't necessarily have virtual machine replication embedded in them, or even LUN-level replication embedded in them. We'll also look at that whole system with VMware's replication solution, including the ability to recover replicated virtual machines. Then we'll look at backup. And when it comes to backup, VMware's solution exists to the extent that we have an API, an application programming interface, for what we call data protection, or the vSphere API for data protection, VADP. And what we do is we hand this API to third-party vendors that build their own backup solutions to support VMware vSphere-based virtual machines. So we'll look at how that system works in general, and then we'll leave it to you to decide what type of backup solution then to implement in your environment. Let's dive right in and look at vSphere replication. Okay, so vSphere replication comes to us in the form of a set of virtual appliances that we will run both in the source data center as well as the remote data center, or the remote area where we're targeting our virtual machines to be replicated. So we have these two virtual appliances that you can download from VMware and deploy into your environment. The appliance comes to us in the form of a standard OVF-based virtual appliance delivered with the vSphere platform and included in all but the absolute essentials license. So with your standard license, your Enterprise Plus license, your Essentials Plus license, all of those licenses give us the ability to download and install and utilize this vSphere replication appliance. If you look at this image, what we're looking at are two different sites, a source site and a target site. And each of these sites will have their own vCenter servers, their own vSphere replication appliances, their own data stores. Okay? When you deploy a vSphere replication appliance against a vCenter server, it will discover the ESXi hosts and install a vSphere replication agent in each of those ESXi hosts. Then what happens as new writes are being committed to your data stores? The vSphere replication agent will take those new blocks and copy them to the vSphere replication appliance. Then, at a predetermined time, the changes since the last time replication occurred to the target site will be copied to the target site, where they will be written down to the data stores that you have selected on the target site for replication. Okay? So that's basically how this works. We're replicating changed blocks by waiting for new writes to be committed. The vSphere replication agent in ESXi reads those blocks, copies them up to the vSphere replication appliance. At a certain point in time, we copy them over to the remote site via a simple network file copy. To deploy the vSphere replication appliance, you're going to download an ISO image from VMware, and you will select the option within the vSphere client to import an OVF. And you're going to select all of the files that are needed. You can see the list of files that are required. They include the CERT, an MF file, an OVF file, and the VMDK files. As you select all of those files at the same time, you run through a wizard to deploy an OVF template. And in doing so, it discovers that, hey, this is the vSphere replication appliance. You're going to select the configuration of that appliance, including all of the storage locations for, hey, where is this virtual machine going to be stored? What network is it going to be attached to? What compute resource, either host or cluster, will it be deployed to? And run through the last set of settings as we run through this wizard to deploy the replication appliance. Once this replication appliance has been deployed, we get a new menu in the vSphere client because there is a plugin included in the vSphere replication appliance for vCenter and the vSphere client. You right-click on a virtual machine, select all vSphere replication actions, and for a particular VM or folder of virtual machines, we're going to configure replication. Now, in this point, we're going to select the replication type. We're going to select the remote site. We're going to choose the replication server on that remote site. We'll then choose the target data store where the files will be replicated to. We'll choose a couple of other options, right, in our replication options. In recovery settings, we get to choose how often blocks will be replicated from the source site to the target site, anywhere from as fast as every 5 minutes to as slow as every 24 hours. This will, of course, depend on the rate of changes of data in your virtual machines. We call this a recovery point objective, and vSphere replication supports up to RPOs as fast as every 5 minutes. Now, your storage arrays, if they have replication built in, may be as fast as 1 minute or even include real-time replication. So if that's the case, this might not be the solution for you. But at least at this point, we're starting to understand how replication is working. We're taking a virtual machine and we're making a copy of that virtual machine at today's point in time to another site. Now, this does not provide backup mechanisms for us. Okay? A backup allows me to save many, many points and times historically so that I can return to a point in time, maybe months or even years in the past, and recover a virtual machine there where it sat at that point in time. This is a much more, this is a system that's much more available for disaster avoidance or disaster recovery that allows me to say, hey, the virtual machine as it stands today, I want to make sure that I can run it on a remote site in the case of a disaster. It creates another copy of those virtual machine files. We can keep a certain number of point-in-time instances. It allows us to choose how many point-in-time instances for the per day I want to keep and for how many days I want to keep those. Okay? And this, of course, requires a little bit of extra storage capacity, so be aware of that, especially on the remote or target site for replication. Then when it comes to recovering replicated virtual machines, I simply right-click on a virtual machine and say recover. And what that will allow me to do, what that will do is it will register the virtual machine with the remote vCenter server and allow me to power it on the remote site. Now, vSphere replication, as you can see here, is quite a manual process. I select the virtual machines, I select the remote site. The recovery is also a manual process. If you want to automate this, and instead of doing an individual virtual machine, you can do an entire data center full of virtual machines, you might choose to use VMware's Site Recovery Manager product, which is really an automation product that allows me to recover entire areas automatically, and it will use this vSphere replication appliance to manage its replication, or it can also be compatible with the built-in replication systems that you have within your storage arrays. Now, when we come back, we're going to have a look at vSphere data protection, and that is backup within your virtual data center. I'll talk to you in just a moment.